Voters in Westport and Elizabethtown will be heading to the polls this coming Tuesday to decide whether to merge their school districts. With enrollment down in less state aid, both districts have had to cut programs and positions. They've had to combine many of their sports teams and even shared a superintendent at one point. So now the two are looking at merging and perhaps building a new school. During a straw poll back in October, more than 80% of voters in the Elizabethtown Lewis School District approved moving ahead with a merger, but the vote was much closer in Westport, where at community forums, townspeople have voiced concerns.
If we lost our school completely, I think it would really have an economic impact on our area, on our town.
While others see a potential benefit.
Their primary focus, obviously, is to educate and prepare our children. I do think that a more robust school system will attract families and economic growth.
If next week's vote passes and the schools merge, elementary students K through 6 would stay where they are. 7th and 8th graders would all go to Westport, and the high school students to E-Town. And we're joined by the superintendents of Elizabethtown Lewis Central School, Scott Osborne, and also Josh Meyer, who is the interim superintendent at Westport Central School. Welcome. It's nice to have you both here.
Thanks for having us.
Communities in your districts will head to the polls this coming Tuesday, December 4th, to decide whether to merge. There was a study. Your school boards have signed off on it, and you gentlemen have as well. Why do you believe it's in everyone's best interest to move ahead and merge?
Moving forward, we're looking at the merger as one of the options. And in doing so, I think it's going to provide the students with some opportunities that they might not have otherwise.
Are they opportunities that they're missing out on now, either academically or programs or sports, things that they could be getting now if you were a combined school district?
I think that we're looking at some programs that we've either recently lost, due to some cuts, or some programs that we might try to bring back. Even some programs that may not have ever been offered.
We're in a time period where the community is expecting a product. They're expecting us to deliver public education. The state is expecting more in their mandates and their demands and what an education looks like for kids, particularly for kids to be competitive globally. So we have heightened expectations, and we're in a period of reduced funding. Both of our school systems, it's well documented, we've lost enrollment over the years. We're in a period of time where the number of children that we're serving is declining. However, our costs are staying the same or they're going up, and that doesn't seem like it should go together, but it does. That's the situation that we're in. That's a situation that was compounded when the Great Recession set in 2010. Funding from Albany has declined for rural schools just like ours. We have a tax cap where cities, small cities, towns, and villages in New York State can collect more school taxes as they wish to. However, schools have a more restrictive mechanism to do that. So all those factors together have kind of put the perfect storm on school districts in our region. And these are two school systems that have already reduced a lot of programming, like Josh talked about. We've made those painful decisions on what programs to reduce or eliminate totally to keep the core of what kids need to graduate intact. And the overall quality is declining because of that situation.
Does the state at any point get involved and say you have to do this?
I don't think that the state so much says that you have to do this, as legislation was passed in Vermont a few years ago. However, New York State does have a process, and the state does have an amount of incentive operating aid that they will infuse in the school district if you follow the process and if the community votes in favor. So while our state has been plain and they've been very clear about reducing local government redundancy, there's no immediate push right now. This has been a process that's been driven by our communities.
And what sort of incentives are they offering?
So there's certainly a financial incentive to the tune of a little over $6 million spread out over 10 years. And even if the community decided they wanted to build a new building, we could use the money for that, and that's at 90%. I would certainly want to clarify that a new building is not a foregone conclusion. That would be something that new school board, the community would decide. But currently, I think that we both feel that we are in buildings right now that, with a little bit of work, could be, certainly could be usable space.
And you do share sports teams. Was that, and that's been for a few years now, was that out of necessity? You simply couldn't get enough players to?
We did. We've been in our shared sports endeavor for about 5 to 6 school years now. I'm proud to have been one of the leaders that was part of that when we did it originally with a former Westport administrator, Dr. John Gallagher. And that merger was done out of necessity. Numbers were declining of participation in both schools. We feel like we've raised the level of engagement in school at both schools with the shared sports teams. It kind of has its own little identity and its own little uniqueness, and that has really been a great endeavor. It was hard to get started, but folks are pretty happy that we did.
By sharing the sports teams, has that helped maybe convince people that the two districts should merge?
I think that, if you look at other districts in the state who are looking at merging, one of the big topics that comes up as a reason not to merge is the sports teams. And so I think already having experimented with some of that, I think makes it more palatable for some people.
Many communities are passionate about their schools. For small communities, it can be the heart and pride of their community. It can be the central gathering place. It can be a large employer in the district. And so especially for Westport, that seems to be the case for a number of families there, that they feel they could lose the town's identity if the school becomes part of a bigger school district. It's hard for them to think about that not being there.
Sure, absolutely.
And I think the great thing for the both of us on that topic is that both schools are still going to be there. There's still going to be a school in Westport, New York. There's still going to be a school in Elizabethtown, New York. It might look a little different, and we might find new ways to bring two communities together to support this one public school that happens to have 2 campuses in their unique neighborhoods. But there still will be school. It might look a little different, but there could be new opportunities and to expand in some new traditions if we can both work together to support this.
If the voters in either district say no on December 4th, then is it over, or is it on hiatus for a while, or what happens?
For me, that answer is complicated. I think legally speaking, we could come back to it in a year and a day, but practically speaking, I think that Westport, would probably have to take a look at another round of cuts, losing more programming, and I think that. One of my fears is that you look at Elizabethtown, and I don't know if in a year and a day our partner is still available. They need to move forward on their own. We need to look at moving forward on our own. So I think that if anyone is looking at voting no to see what's going to happen in a year and a day, I'm not sure that that's the best way to move forward.
If both school districts say yes, what happens then? What's the timetable?
Very quickly, the new school board would be elected.
Could you have this in place by the fall of 2019?
Well, actually, that is the timetable.
Yeah,
That's the timetable.
That we're going to open school as the new district after Labor Day next fall.
Scott Osborne, Josh Meyer, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.